Hello and welcome again to this edition of FLITV. I'm your host, Brad Swanson. We are coming to you not from Florida Internet and Television's headquarters, but from across the street from Florida's capital. We're here at Andrew's Restaurant, the hub of where everyone comes to eat and broker their deals. I am joined by Mr. Burgess, publisher and editor of The Capitolist. It's an amazing site. You should all check it out. Go log in.
Everyone knows what it is. TheCapitalist.com.
Right.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Well, it's always fun to have you. I feel like here we are at Mardi Gras, but no beads, no nothing. You did not bring any gifts.
I think the governor is actually still speaking, and that's why there's not a huge crowd, a throng behind us, because there will be shortly once he gets done speaking.
Of course.
I listen to these speeches, though, by the way, so you don't have to.
Right. Well, thank you. We're very grateful that you listen to them, because usually I don't even tape them. I just have them on. They're amazing. They're amazing by amazing people.
Riveting
They're
content.
Great people. All right, so let's jump in. All right.
They send out, by the way, I'm not actually listening, as you can tell. He is, right now, he's speaking behind us to the joint session of the legislature.
Right. And they're all in the House of Representatives. They're listening. It's an august body. And they're telling the world what they're going to work on. At least that's what they're telling people. I
did listen to a little bit before I came over here, and he made a lot of jokes about Casey DeSantis and his kids, how his kids have not broken any Florida artifacts, which was a funny line, but it only got a mild little bit of applause. Just people want the real content and the meat and potatoes of the speech. They don't want family jokes.
Well, let's start with the governor. So what is the governor talking about?
He's obviously, after the jokes are made, you always start with a nice preamble. He's got a few jokes. He introduced his wife and talked about that. He made a few jokes about his children not breaking any artifacts in the mansion. But he led off with the environment. And I think it's a safe area for him. It's something that I think it has broad appeal, especially with the situation down in South Florida with the algae blooms and different things that all these communities have experienced. Sure. This governor has made it a point to emphasize his commitment to the environment. And I think it's not even a bold move. It's just a smart political move, very, very calculated. I'm not sure how much he can actually accomplish there, because it's an age-old problem. We've had algae. Yes, it was bad in the last few years. Right. He highlighted a few things he did with the South Florida Water Management District. So he ticked off a few of those things, and then he encouraged the legislature to keep moving. The other thing is he highlighted the economy. That was his second big point, and he really focused in on limiting regulation, and that's something that Republicans, it's easy, low-hanging fruit, right? Right. But he gave a couple of interesting examples. He talked about how you can become a sniper in the U.S. Marine Corps or an airborne paratrooper in only weeks, and yet it takes thousands and thousands of hours to get a license to become a barber in Florida. So that got a lot of applause. It was a good line. And so he's doing the typical. I
mean, we are talking about people's hair. I mean, that's a very important.
I understand why you might want to go to a barber who is regulated for that heavily. But as for me, I just get up in the morning, comb my hair. I'm fine. I can go to an actual barber.
Except for today, but that's okay. Okay, so he's talking about reducing regulations. Okay.
Right. So that's really the highlight of his speech. And I think you can contrast that with Speaker Oliva, who didn't. He went right into it. Speaker Oliva just led with a hard punch right at the healthcare industry.
Right.
He called the healthcare situation in Florida a 5-alarm fire, which is that's some pretty weighty rhetoric, right? I mean, you don't normally see that from Republicans saying that we're going to make healthcare the priority. And he's talking about the hospital industrial complex, which is some loaded language.
Wow.
I mean, he's coming right out. That's right. Goes back, what, to the Eisenhower era, right?
Eisenhower industrial military complex.
Right. And so, and he's been hitting that. It's not a term that he coined, but he has made it his. And he is, to lead with talking about some of the things, he's talking about some exciting things, telemedicine, telehealth things, and sort of enabling some technology things that he believes could lower the health care, bend down that health care cost curve, as they talk about.
Well, and obviously, our members are hugely excited about the idea of telemedicine, because that stuff will ride over our networks into people's homes.
We've now got the technology for video conferencing, where doctors can take a look at things. That visual aspect is very important, but and now with that high bandwidth internet that's becoming ubiquitous everywhere, even in rural areas now, it's becoming more and more ubiquitous. 5G's on the horizon. You've got a lot of exciting things that I think Speaker Oliva believes is going to help bend that cost curve, downward. So he talked a lot about that. He talked about another thing that he talked about, which I think is, going to It got applause, but it was repealing the certificate of need, and that that's that legislative.
It's a protective barrier. You invest all the money in your surgical center or your cancer center, and it basically says, okay, no one in our area can compete with us on this sort of stuff for X amount of time.
Right. So for him, it's about breaking up the monopoly, allowing other entities to come into those communities and compete.
Right.
He believes that some of these healthcare centers have monopolies in communities, and it leads to higher and higher prices. And he's right. There's a lot more money in these healthcare industrial, these larger networks.
Right.
They have even the nonprofits have a lot of money.
Were you about to say in the healthcare industrial complex? Were you about to say that?
I think it's going to become part of our lexicon soon, as long as Speaker Oliva stays on topic. As long as he stays, if he stays on message like the former governor stayed on message about jobs, that'll become part of our lexicon.
Well, I love the idea of just major industries, coming to bear on issues that senior leadership, is taking a role in, because it really does create a ton of things to talk about and to pay attention to in the legislation. As long as they're not my industry, I'm good.
Just don't touch us, right? Right. And President Galvano, he was fairly tame in his speech. What was remarkable, the real difference between President Galvano, Senate President Galvano, and the governor and Speaker Oliva was what he sent out to the media right ahead of his speech, which was he highlighted three paragraphs or three actual statements that he made. And I'll read you the highlight of the one if I can find it. But it was basically, he didn't really highlight any particular priorities
legislatively.
Didn't
come out hitting on any one item.
What he highlighted was, history will not judge us based on the number of bills we pass or steps towards fulfilling a personal agenda. History will judge us based on the quality of our actions. And he encouraged his members to be willing to back away from bad legislation. So that was sort of what he highlighted and what he wanted the media to take away from his speech.
Do you see that as President Galvano's style, to kind of take a step back and let his members kind of argue their concepts? Or do you think, like every other president, they say that, but then they come in with their agenda?
I think it's a very smart play in that it keeps his cards close to the vest. Right now, with Speaker Oliva, healthcare is the priority.
Right.
With Galvano, what's the priority? The priority is, let's not put forth any bad legislation, so he's got his cards close to the vest. Of course he has priorities. Of course he's going to be pushing for specific agenda items. Right. But what are they? He's less vulnerable politically because of it.
Well, he did just come out last week and push the transportation corridor extensions.
He's going to have priority. That's what I mean. He's going to do those. That stuff is
but the
obviously
fact that it's not in his State of the Senate remarks.
It's an interesting move, is what I'll say about that.
All right. So what are you most looking forward to writing about, or what should we be looking at thecapitalist.com to see?
Well, I think I'm going to roll out a press skits video here in the next few weeks.
Okay.
I think that's the big next thing that happens in Tallahassee, right? Press skits. So we're going to start mocking all these people.
Right.
I like to cover it. I like to cover the issues. I'm obviously going to be covering the Oliva stuff with the healthcare industrial complex.
Right.
I'm going to cover a lot of different things. There's a lot of other exciting things happening that aren't being led by the governor, the speaker, and there's a big push to deregulate the utility industry, and I think that's going to be an interesting fight as we go forward. It's going to be a fight.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes.
Well, if history prevails, the IOUs don't lose their fights in Florida. So we'll see, what that looks like, in the end.
And I'm not sure they should, right? With hurricanes and all those things going on, they've done a pretty decent job in terms of getting Florida back on its feet. I think Florida's a little bit different than other states in that regard, so we'll see.
For sure. Well, Brian, we're going to continue to tune into thecapitalist.com for your pithy insights, super funny humor, and we just love the way you tell the story of Florida politics, and thanks for sharing it with the viewers of FLITV.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate you. That's all the time we have for today's show. Make sure you hit us up on our Facebook and our Twitter feeds, on social media, and for now, thanks for tuning in.